So I'm going to take a minute and talk to you men out there. We know how important it is as guys to feel clean, right? But oftentimes we use products that don't really make us feel clean. You put them on or you use them in the shower and you come out and you're like, well, I kind of feel clean, but the products don't feel like they did what they were supposed to do, right? That's where rivalsoaps.com comes in. They are actually a clean you can feel. So what do they offer? They have body wash, lotion, beard balm, and all of these are made with only top quality ingredients. So this is not going to be your run-of-the-mill store brand knockoffs, right? So they may not be the cheapest, but you always get what you pay for. And right now, you can check out rivalsoaps.com and do a favor for yourself. Actually feel clean. Your body, your beard, whatever's attached to you, it will feel clean. Head on over to rivalsoaps.com. Check them out today.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Oh, it's time for the current state of WWE, everybody. You know exactly where we're going to go with tonight's show. Anthony DeMarco is with me live as I talk right now. Well, live for me, not for you. And we have a lot to discuss. Obviously, the title of this episode is going to give you a big hint as to what we're going to talk about. But before we get going, I want to let everyone know, if you haven't joined Patreon yet on the SmackDown tier and above, now's a good time, because Anthony DeMarco is doing a After Dark show every single Friday for those on the SmackDown tier and above on Patreon. And of course, you get everything else ad free. You get a video that's done a few times a week now. So just wanted to put that out there. And before we get going, Anthony, man, oh man, are you ready to do this? You ready to talk about the great one?
Yeah, in the words of Cody Rhodes, what do you want to talk about, right? As I fight back vomit in my mouth.
How dare you? Yeah. But well placed, well played. No, that's exactly right. I'm not going to say a word yet. Let me get your overall thoughts. I don't have a specific question yet. What did you think about SmackDown this past Friday in Denver with The Rock's return?
Well, I mean, nobody saw it coming, right? Like, unadvertised. The last time that The Rock showed up unadvertised for a WWE event, I don't even remember, because even his last appearance on the first ever SmackDown on Fox, which was just about 4 years ago now, was advertised, right? To generate traffic to Fox for the first ever SmackDown moving on to that network. And it's just rare that you see a return of that magnitude go unadvertised now, because of all the positive repercussions that go into advertising the you-know-what out of a return like that. And it seemed like it was very maybe last minute. Obviously, the chips kind of fell perfectly for WWE, as he was in Colorado for Pat McAfee's show, and they did something on ESPN, I think, for college football as well. So, look, it was pretty much a perfect storm, and you were actually the one who tipped me off about it, because I had people over on Friday. I usually watch SmackDown on delay, but I had to stop the entire night and let everyone know, no, I have to watch SmackDown. I don't care how big of a dork you think I am, but this is a thing that needs to go down right now. And, like, we could get into the actual content and substance of the segment later, but obviously my first reaction was kind of surreal. Like, I was starting to think that he was never going to come back, and he finally pulled the trigger. And it at least in his entrance, it seemed like he was in full Rock mode. Like, we always talk about, or me specifically, about how he's more Dwayne Johnson now than he is The Rock. And maybe it was just the fact that he was wearing sunglasses, but I felt like, at least for the entrance, he was in the full character of The Rock.
Man, yeah, this obviously, to say it was unexpected for most people is the understatement of the year. If you paid attention to the Pat McAfee's show, which unfortunately came across on social media to me, and then shortly thereafter I heard rumors of, well, he's in the area, and I'm like, oh crap. And then I heard Pat McAfee on the show. I'm like, so it kind of spoiled it for me, unfortunately. But The last unadvertised appearance by The Rock, the only time I can think of is when he went to Brooklyn. It was a Brooklyn Raw, and it was 2016, 2017-ish, and it was when he showed up and did a segment with Rusev and with Lana. That's the only other time. I think that's the last time. So, I mean, it's been 4 years though since he interacted with Corbin on the initial SmackDown on Fox, the whole rebranding of the show, which since that time has really done. I mean, arguably
is the A show.
I mean, yeah, right from the get go. So the crowd reaction was chill. It was like goosebumps. I mean, even though you and I will talk about this a little bit later, it wasn't the best segment in the world, but hearing The Rock's entrance music, because we've been talking about The Rock's return and oh, he could do it, he could not do it, and he finally shows up. Now, I know that there's actually some negativity going around about what The Rock said on Pat McAfee's show, and if you need a refresher, if the audience needs a refresher, basically what he said was that last year in SoFi Stadium, he was locked in. It was locked in that he was going to face Roman Reigns, and things fell through. They wanted to do something bigger than just a match, and that's what they couldn't come up with, so he scrapped it. Whatever. But I guess people are having especially another large podcast that I won't mention here, but they and others have talked about, well, it's disrespectful to Cody Rhodes to say that because Cody Rhodes was put in that spot, and now it craps all over Cody Rhodes' spot that he got second place to The Rock not taking Roman Reigns on at that time. But I'll stop there and let you respond.
Yeah, I actually heard it listening to your Week in Review today about that. I haven't had the chance to go back and listen to The Rock on Pat McAfee's show, but it seems like it's a must listen. And you could kind of dissect this in certain ways. The first thing that I thought of when I heard that was BS. I mean, I don't think that they didn't pull the trigger on that just because the story didn't make sense. And if that's true, that's absolutely asinine. I think, in my opinion, I think it's because The Rock can clear and take my opinion for what it is, right? Like, I'm just some guy on a laptop in Montreal, Quebec, right? But I can't imagine that and I think you said this as well, you're telling me that they couldn't have come up with one compelling story in a story that literally writes itself? His music would hit with Roman in the ring and everyone would be like, yep, I know why he's here. I know why he's coming. I know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a rocket scientist or William Shakespeare to write this story. But in my opinion, it's like he just didn't have time, which was fine. Whatever. It all fell through. As for Cody Rhodes, people being bent out of shape that he has to take a backseat, you know what? Like, I said this on my After Dark show with a lot more cuss words, so I'll keep it PG here. But it is okay to admit that Cody Rhodes isn't in the same class as the greatest wrestlers of all time. And The Rock is in that class, and Roman Reigns is scratching the surface of that class. Whether or not you like it or not, Roman Reigns has elevated himself to that level over the last 3 years. Not quite there, but I mean, is it fair to say that Roman Reigns might be in a Triple H tier right now?
He is. No, yeah. I mean, Roman Reigns should, he's already on the signature at the start of the show with all of the famous, that's the bottom line. And if you smell Hogan and Rock, I mean, he's up there with Triple H too. Absolutely. I think that's fair to say that Roman Reigns has reached that point. Yes.
So in my words, so for me, it's like, is Triple H in the greatest of all time? I would say no. But he's right under that tier. Like, greatest of all time, you have like the Hogans, the Rocks, the Steve Austins, obviously John Cena, that moniker has kind of been forced on him. And then you have that second tier of like the Triple H's, the Kurt Angles, maybe the Shawn Michaels as well. Obviously very subjective. But yeah. Roman is in that class. The Rock is in the top tier class. And it is okay to admit that Cody's not in that class. It is okay to admit that maybe Cody is in the Seth Rollins class, or maybe he's in the Drew McIntyre class, or maybe he's in the AJ Styles class. Like, I think that's where Cody Rhodes falls. Even though I am disgusted and nauseated by his character, I can be objective and say, yeah, he's that good of a wrestler and that good of a, for lack of better terms, performer. But there's a lot of people, and I think some within WWE, that have this obsession of putting Cody Rhodes in this tier that he's not even close to. And that's not a slight on him. Like, that's not a slight on AJ Styles. It's not a slight on Seth Rollins. It's not a slight on Drew McIntyre. Maybe like even a Randy Orton, although Randy Orton's probably in that Triple H tier as well. But we have this obsession of trying to shoehorn Cody Rhodes into like the greatest of all time or close to it class. And I am sorry, The Rock versus Roman Reigns is bigger than any other wrestler or storyline at WWE's disposal right now, including Seth Rollins, including Gunther, including Austin Theory, including AJ Styles, including John Cena's return. It's bigger and more important than John Cena's return right now. So for everyone crying about that Cody Rhodes isn't getting the spotlight, and you know what's funny is I remember leading into WrestleMania last year, I think Cody Rhodes was doing an interview and he said something like, well, we don't need The Rock here right now. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, shut the bleep up. Yes, we do. You are nothing compared to not only The Rock, but to this story as well. So between Cody Rhodes loving himself and this large contingent of people who want to shoehorn into a tier that he has no business even sniffing, I could not give a rat's behind as to what people actually think about that.
I have to applaud you for so much self-censoring on that whole there was a lot of time you just saved me from post-edit. But I will say that the Cody Rhodes obsession right now is one that has lasted longer than I ever thought it would. I thought that people would turn on him pretty quickly upon his return, and all of a sudden he's in the 30th spot of the Rumble and wins the Rumble and all this. And I'm not trying to turn this into a Cody rant, but this is strongly related because The Rock and Cody are kind of intertwined here for trying to compete with the Roman Reigns main event. And last year, obviously, was Cody. This year is slated to be Rock, and we can get into that too in a minute. But with Cody Rhodes, it's like, who anointed him to be right now one of the greatest of all time? He's been back for what? And injured. He's been back for a year and some change, and all of a sudden he's supposed to be again in this class of the greatest of all time, and he was injured for half of it, and so just because he's a returning star from AEW and he's Dusty's son, we're all supposed to just go, yep, he's instantly one of the greatest of all time. Yet he had one of the worst gimmicks of all time in Stardust, of which he actually spent more time in WWE as. So this is not something he can achieve. Again, he can. It just takes time. It takes consistent fan investment. It takes sales of T-shirts. It takes those how many numbers you're driving to the company, dollar wise, viewership wise. There's a lot that goes into being considered one of the greatest of all time. And I, no disrespect to Cody, but right now he is not in the Rock's tier. So for him to, if people are taking offense on behalf of Cody for The Rock, who mentioned he was going to be slated for Roman Reigns last year, I got news for you. Too bad. I don't care. I mean, like, literally, I don't care. Like, that is your problem. If you are offended on behalf of somebody that is probably, I don't even know if Cody Rhodes is offended himself. He had a great match with Roman. I can't take that away from him. He had a really good match with Roman.
He
and
does love himself a lot,
doesn't he? And this is where it bleeds through. He can't help but it shows. And so Cody right now, if he is really angry at this, I think he should take a hard look in the mirror, maybe get rid of some of that bleach blonde hair and his crest white strips that he uses every day, and perhaps think to himself, hey, a guy that is coming in that has had 7 times the career that I have is due to have a bigger main event than me. I know it's about building stars, but you know what? This is a match that the fans want to see much more than they want to see me and Roman. So that's the point too, is the fans were asking for Roman and Rock forever. They weren't asking for, oh my God, Cody and Roman. What a fantasy match. Stop the nonsense.
It's just like, I don't know why it's become like a cult thing now with Cody Rhodes, that like now we have people upset that The Rock is taking away Cody Rhodes' spotlight. Like, let's look at the tread left on their respective tires here. The Rock has what? Like, I'm not going to lie. Did he not look old? Was it not the first time that it was just like, he's getting old when you saw The Rock?
Yeah, even for all of his millions and millions of dollars, it was the first time I looked at him and I go, he's still in the top 1% of 1% of shape of people in his age. But yeah, you could start to see it.
And we don't have a lot more time left. Like you and I were talking about it, that like it's a this year or bust. Like if he doesn't do it this year, no one cares anymore. We could get into whether or not we think it's actually going to happen and how we could see it unfold in a bit. But Cody Rhodes, not to say that he's a spring chicken. I think he's in his late 30s. I know I've asked this question before, but I don't care enough to remember because I just hate Cody Rhodes. But it's like he has another probably 5 years of doing this. And he loves himself so much that you know that he's going to push it to the nth degree, his in-ring career, which is fine. He's a great in-ring performer, all that. But you have all the time in the world, relatively speaking, for him to finish his stupid story that I could give a whatever about. And he can go on and he can sing to his own entrance music and do his coordinated pyro and kiss the babies and sign, little girls as posters and do all the stupidity that he thinks is endearing, but literally makes me want to puke all over the television. And you know what? That's fine. He deserves to hold the championship. He deserves to parade it around and do his fake cry and be like, "Oh, Daddy, I did it for you." Like we all see it coming a mile away with my vomit spewing all the way across the timeline as it happens. And you know what? You can have that, but not now. We're going to do this historic storyline right now, and you're going to be a good little soldier. You're going to take a back seat, and all your little minions can do the same thing. Stick a sock down your throat so I don't have to hear you cry the whole way to it. You can have a match with John Cena or Seth Rollins Part 5 or CM Punk or AJ Styles or Drew McIntyre. Or you know what? Just go for the World Heavyweight title. It doesn't have to be the Undisputed Championship. I could not care. He could be on the resurrection of Sunday Night Heat before WrestleMania for all I care. I do not care about Cody Rhodes when it comes to The Rock and Roman, and anyone who does is a biased buffoon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe it'll bring back Velocity too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I that's the thing too. Whether this is Cody or anybody else, and I'm sure there's rumblings and complaining and grumblings backstage of, oh my God, now who's going to compete with Roman? It should be somebody up and coming. And 9 times out of 10, I would agree with you. It should help build new stars, this and that. But here's the thing. This is a dream match that will bring in more money for everyone on the roster than it would with someone else there, because The Rock is going to bring in a massive crossover audience. He immediately garners the television screen. He brings in a lot more money than anyone else would. He'll sell more tickets than anyone else will. And that means a larger payday for everyone on the roster. Everyone gets more money if The Rock is in the main event. That's just the way it is. Also, Cody, you had your main event spot with Roman last year. I understand you want to finish your bedtime story. I understand that. But this is not the time to do it if The Rock is there. If The Rock wasn't there, maybe we could have another conversation. I still wouldn't want to see him finish his story, but there are other guys who could do it. But The Rock right now is front and center. I understand he's probably not going to win the title. I understand that it is kind of a one-off for The Rock, and then he's going to go back to Hollywood, the next night. Like, I understand that. We know that. But to finish at least on the Cody versus The Rock placement, there should be no discussion. This is a non-issue when it comes to who should compete with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania.
But it seems to be like there's this contingent led by Cody himself that want to push Cody into a stratosphere that he doesn't belong in. That was one of the things that I talked about on After Dark, is like, what's wrong with just accepting that Cody Rhodes is just a very good wrestler? It feels like we can't just accept that. We have to make him feel like this larger than life demigod. It's crazy. Like, even in AEW, he held the TNT Championship, which is essentially the Intercontinental Championship. That's what I've been led to believe. I don't get why he was dashing Cody Rhodes to Stardust to Cody on AEW, never even sniffed a world title, comes to WWE, and now he's bigger than The Rock. Like, why are we supposed to believe this? Like, why couldn't he have just had a normal career like everyone else? Why can't he just be in a Seth Rollins tier or an AJ Styles tier? Like, what is wrgoing with that? Why do we have to make Cody Rhodes this larger than life Steve Austin-esque babyface?
I mean, I think a lot of it, and I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, but I think it's the way it is the fact that his entrance music is insanely sing-alongable. right? Like
Good point.
I mean, really, like, and sure, you could even attribute that to Seth Rollins' success. Not that he, and I'm not going to take this out of context and say Seth Rollins' success is only because of his entrance music. No, I think that helped him along in finding out who his identity is and the crowd finally starting to support him. Obviously, but Seth Rollins has a much larger body of work and successful body of work than does Cody in WWE. But that said, I think Cody right now, you take away his entrance music, if his entrance music sucked, would Cody Rhodes be the same guy with the same support of the fans? I think he would still be cheered, but I don't think it would be to the level it is because people are amped up by that entrance. They wait for it. They want it's kind of a participation type of entrance. So I don't know. It may be something superficial that people vehemently disagree with me on, but I really do believe that that's kind of a significant part of it is that entrance music. So I'm going to take a minute and talk to you men out there. We know how important it is as guys to feel clean, right? But oftentimes we use products that don't really make us feel clean. You put them on or you use them in the shower and you come out and you're like, well, I kind of feel clean, but the products don't feel like they did what they were supposed to do, right? That's where rivalsoaps.com comes in. They are actually a clean you can feel. So what do they offer? They have body wash, lotion, beard balm, and all of these are made with only top quality ingredients. So this is not going to be your run-of-the-mill store brand knockoffs, right? So they may not be the cheapest, but you always get what you pay for. And right now, you can check out rivalsoaps.com and do a favor for yourself. Actually feel clean. Your body, your beard, whatever's attached to you, it will feel clean. Head on over to rivalsoaps.com. Check them out today.
Well, I mean, look at Seth Rollins. And to be honest, like I like Seth Rollins. I've never liked his theme song that he has now. I find it incredibly annoying. And I know maybe I sound like a contrarian to a lot of people, and I like Seth Rollins. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. It's just I never got the whole obsession with the Whoa sing-along thing. Cody Rhodes has a good theme song. And you know this about me. I've talked about this for 2 years now. I don't like people who sing along to their own theme songs. It's corny to me. I used to hate it when Sasha Banks did it. Like, I remember when Baron Corbin debuted as the Lone Wolf, and he had a really kick-ass theme song. And then he changed his theme song to the one I believe he still has to this day. And you could tell how much he loved his own theme song, and it immediately put me off. So maybe I just have a thing with guys who obviously love their own themes. And even, you know what, even Rhea Ripley, and my girlfriend called me out for this. I'm a super big Rhea Ripley fan, but Rhea Ripley sings her own theme song, which is that teeters into dicey waters for me. There might be an exception for Rhea Ripley because I like her so much, but I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm in my own boat here, but I've always hated people who sing along to their own theme songs.
I've never vocalized it, but I think subconsciously it's been there for me where it's something that it should be ignored by them. And it's almost like they're too self-aware of what's happening.
Exactly.
I don't want them to know what the words are. They just come out and kick ass. Like I don't want. Imagine if like The Rock came out and you know what I mean, like or Austin. I mean, imagine if Austin came out when he had his Disturbed theme and he came out and he's singing his song, right? Like I mean,
it would look weird.
It would look ridiculous. I know that
Triple H singing along to Motorhead.
Yeah, I know that he cues his music and does his water thing when the chord hits right. I understand that. He's self-aware enough to do that, but it fits because he's not singing to it. You can't see him mouthing the words to Motorhead. Like, yeah. So, all right. Well, circling back here to because now I don't know how the hell that happened, but nonetheless, Cody or I guess I'm going to wrap up the Cody Rhodes thing and I want to move on to what actually happened on SmackDown. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
All right. Because trust me, I know all of a sudden
until tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, and I have a feeling that there's going to be more of this as the months go by, but all right. So on SmackDown, he comes out, he's opposing Austin Theory as Pat McAfee's there. I don't know why Pat McAfee's there. They didn't really explain it other than people were just kind of happy to see him. And hey, I like Pat. I think he brings an energy to the announce table, or he did. He does have a kind of a fun personality to him. He can be a bit annoying at times, but generally I've enjoyed his energy that he brings. He's like a breath of fresh air on commentary. or was. And so anyway, he comes out and Austin Theory comes out and they get in this, a bit of a battle. And then the Rock comes out and people lose their minds. And then Austin Theory and The Rock oppose each other. And everyone's wearing black wife beaters, by the way. I don't know what that was about. But The Rock ends up doing this skit where he asks one side of the audience to say "you are" and the other one says an a-hole. And the audio on this was completely unlistenable if you're at home, because Fox executives must have been sweating in the truck. Like they're sitting there like bleep, bleep, like the whole thing was bleeped out. Like you didn't hear audio for like 3 minutes straight. So it was very difficult at home to hear this because of everything what the crowd was saying. Let me get your take on what did you think about what The Rock and Austin Theory were talking about and how the promo went generally?
When I watched this promo in its entirety, the first thing I thought of, and I don't know why, is this has Vince McMahon written all over it. It's like he took his 3 favorite people in wrestling right now, Saw and Roman Reigns, and just put them in a promo together. And you know what? It's okay. It was kind of like The Rock's greatest hits as usual. I mean, it was somewhat similar to what he did with Baron Corbin and Becky Lynch 3 years ago or 4 years ago. It was eerily similar. I wasn't a massive fan of it, primarily because, like you said, there was a lot of bleeping, and 60% of the promo you couldn't hear because it was bleeped out, which was just annoying. At a certain point, I was just like, okay, just put a subtitle, or obviously not subtitles, but like, what's the point of this promo? But secondly, I didn't like Pat McAfee there. I like him in general, kind of your point, but I just didn't think that he was needed here. Austin Theory, I mean, I think that they're just trying to give him some more legitimacy and get him back on some kind of a relevant path. But again, he did kind of just get squashed by The Rock, which, I mean, I guess it's winning in a losing fashion is their thought. And I believe you tweeted it out that for as dull as he's been lately, he's worked with Edge, he's worked with Austin, he's worked with John Cena over the last 18 months or so. So that's a hell of a rub for him. The Rock now, obviously, in my opinion, you bring The Rock back after 4 years and you bring him back when everyone's expecting him to insert himself into the Bloodline story. And this is what he does. He does something that advances no storyline. He does a skit that we've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of times before, rinse, repeat. Like the formula was literally the same thing as it was with Becky and Baron 4 years ago, where you have the lovable, like the super over babyface, one of the top heels who they're pushing to be in that spot, which Baron Corbin was. Like they were getting him ready for his feud with Roman during the winter of 2019-2020. Like that was right before he got that push to go against Roman. To me, it was just like, I saw this so many times in the 2010s and even in the 2000s, as soon as The Rock became a part-timer, that I just didn't want to see this. And especially given the fact that the Bloodline was featured in some capacity, although only with Jimmy and Solo, I would have liked to see some kind of interaction with the Bloodline. And it made me think, like, man, like, if this is a one-off, like, as if they botched it to this degree. Now, going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume that in Survivor Series to Royal Rumble season, The Rock will resurface and finally have a confrontation with Roman Reigns. But to me, I'm not going to lie, it kind of fell flat, in my opinion.
Yeah, it fell flat if your expectation was Bloodline, tease, Roman Reigns, let's go. And I think that's why I think this was not something they planned. It was just kind of a happenstance for WWE, where he actually happened to be in the area. He was recording with Pat in Boulder, which is an hour outside Denver. And, they ended up saying, yeah, hey, why don't I stop by and have some fun? I actually don't think this was planned months ago. I think this was something kind of almost spur of the moment. And you saw some matches get cut big time on SmackDown because of it. So I don't think this was planned really maybe even a week in advance. It could have been that day for all we know. It felt very last minute to do, and I'm not complaining about it. But that means that this is something that was in its own vacuum. It's in its own container, right? Like, you can't use this as like, well, he said or did this, or he was backstage. And some people tried to actually stretch it to, well, immediately after The Rock and John Cena came face to face, which was a cool moment. I got to say, like, seeing them face to face after what they went through 10 years ago was a cool moment. They're both in Hollywood now, all that. And they'll have a lot of free time, by the way, with the writer's strike. So, that was a cool moment, but then immediately they transitioned to Jimmy and Paul Heyman and that thing. So people are trying to stretch it. Well, there was that connection of, from a production standpoint of Jimmy and Paul Heyman. They were the very next segment. So WWE's teasing it that way. And I guess maybe if you're searching for anything, that would be something. But yeah, there was zero mention of the Bloodline. I think this was just happenstance. He came back. It was just a fun segment. The Rock does his greatest hits a spine buster, hits the people's elbow. The people, have an orgasm, and that's it. Right? Like, so I don't think this was something that they planned out, but I would anticipate, yes, Survivor Series, December, maybe all the way to Rumble. But yeah, the next time we see The Rock, it's going to be for WrestleMania purposes, not for just a one-off.
I hope so, because like, I thought they could have at least planted some kind of seed, like just give us a little taste, like even if it's him just like crossing paths with Paul Heyman backstage, or just seeing Paul Heyman in the background when he had his segment with John Cena, just anything. But if it's just the long game here, fine, I get it. I'll play along. They have until Royal Rumble-ish season to make this right. But do you find, on a bit of a side note, do you find that this SmackDown, especially with it being the first WWE program in the Endeavor era, do you not feel like it kind of reeked of Vince McMahon a bit?
This is, I need to be very concise here because this is something that could be, again, a whole nother show. The answer is yes. While people think Vince McMahon is now not in control. He's, it's the first Endeavor show where Vince isn't in charge. The final show of the Vince McMahon era. We saw that all over social media. Nonsense. It's a bunch of garbage, hot garbage. Specifically, yes, gobbledygook, as LA Knight eloquently put it with the Bray Wyatt program. It's gobbledygook because it's nothing more than eyewash. It's what they want the fans to think because of how Vince was perceived by the fans and all the scandal that happened around Vince and how the fans as a majority feel that Vince is out of touch and all this. Like, most fans don't want Vince in charge of creative anymore. So it was, Endeavor's taken over. So yeah, Vince isn't involved anymore. Yeah, okay, on paper they are, and Vince may not have, percentage-wise, in terms of money, control of the company anymore, but you don't think that the Endeavor executives are going to possibly appoint Vince McMahon kind of under the table as a head of creative, but on, in the public eye, it's the Paul Levesque era. It's a bunch of nonsense. Vince is not going anywhere. Vince is not going to stay out of creative until he's dead. I am telling you that. I'm telling everybody that. Vince is the guy. We all know who and what personality he is. He's not going to let go of this. It's his firstborn child, essentially. He doesn't know any other way of life. He doesn't know how to exist without WWE. So the fact that people think that, Vince isn't in charge. No, I think he has a very heavy influence backstage still.
And what people forget is, like, they formed a new company called the TKO Group Holdings. He's the executive chairman of that company.
Yeah.
Like, it's like he is technically he is Dana White's boss. Like, if we're being real here, save for Ari Emanuel, he's the highest ranking official on the UFC side of things. Yeah. You don't think that he has all the power in the world on the WWE side of things? Like, he's a power hungry maniac. Like, let's be honest here. Did you see that new picture of him with the TKO group?
So many people made memes out of that. Yes, I saw it. Yeah.
Like, it's like you look at him and it's just like he's like Cody Rhodes. He loves himself.
Yeah.
Like, the guy's going to be 80 years old in less than 24 months, I think. Like, he's never stepping away. Now, do I think that, like, he's booking like the 8:30 to 9 o'clock time slot of Raw or like the 9:15 segment of SmackDown? No, I do believe that he's not in the weeds, as he said when they made the announcement, I believe on CNBC, because I do think what we've seen, even with Triple H as the head of creative, and even with Vince still, like, since Vince's return, when everyone thought that was it and he was taking over again, I still do think we've seen Triple H's fingerprints on it, because we've seen the lower / middle card be respected more, and the stories on the lower and middle card really do have more substance to them, and we understand why they're happening. But if we're being honest, like, the big kind of matches or the big moments still feel very Vince-esque, and that's not always a bad thing. Like, it's not like everything that Vince the touches turns to garbage, right? And I think that's kind of a misconception too. Like, let's be real. WrestleMania 38, save for the main event of Roman versus Brock, that was a really good WrestleMania, and that was when Vince McMahon was still fully in charge. So Vince still does have the ability to, put on really great shows and have a great mind for the business. It's just that he's a maniac and he won't let it just go. But I'm not saying that the whole show was bad, but it did have a very Vince-esque feel to it. Case in point, the show ended with the Grayson Waller effect, a talk show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vince loves his talk shows. My God. You could go through a chapter and verse of how many damn talk shows have been created by Vince, and it's just, and not all of them bad. And again, I think that's a good point to bring up, is everything Vince touches, it doesn't decay and turn to, poison. I think we have, as fans, and I'm guilty of it too, overreacted to, if Vince is in charge, and we knew that, we enjoyed everything that happened over the last 2 months, and then on the back end we found out Vince was actually the one responsible for all those segments. I wouldn't, in hindsight, I may have gone, oh, well, maybe it wasn't as good, and had that kind of bias that, you're not aware of. But I think if Vince, or fans know that Vince is in charge ahead of time, ahead of something happening, that fans would immediately kind of shift their lens to, well, if Vince is going to do it, it's probably going to suck. But if they don't tell people that Vince are in charge and things are awesome, they automatically assume, well, Vince isn't doing this, it's probably Triple H or somebody else. So I think the perception is anything that's bad is Vince's fault, anything that's good they see is Triple H. And I don't think that's fair to Vince. I really don't. I mean, I don't think just because he's 80 years old and he's knocking on death's door in probably in the next 10 to 15 years that everything that comes out of his head is a bad idea. I mean, he gave us some of the greatest things that have come ever out of professional wrestling ever. So I don't think that's a fair assumption. But to that end, I still don't believe if I could create this or I could manipulate the whole system, Vince would be nowhere near creative. You want to give him a back office job, you want to give him a executive job at an office, fine. Keep him the hell out of creative in all aspects unless he's asked. But that's not what's happening. We know that's not what's happening. It's just it's kind of they're masking what's really going on for public perception, and they're a company that this happens all the time. This isn't a new concept. It's just that this merger is massive and the visibility is larger. But again, I'm circling back here. I'm trying to keep this train on the tracks. It's difficult. How do you think, or ultimately, let's get to the ultimate question. Does this happen? Does The Rock and Roman Reigns, now we can just talk about it because The Rock returned. And now if you watch the Pat McAfee episode with The Rock, he blatantly talked about WrestleMania 40 and he gave a smile about it, and you'll see. So I think we can finally talk about this as a real thing, not just pie in the sky. Do you think this actually happens? Rock, Roman, WrestleMania 40?
I still have my doubts. But I think yes, just because if it doesn't, it would be the ultimate slap in the face to the entire wrestling world. And there's nothing really more to say on the matter. If you do not pull the trigger on Rock and Roman now at WrestleMania 40, you will be spitting in the face of every wrestling fan with half a brain. And I'm sorry, if you want to see Cody versus Roman 2 instead of Rock, you have half a brain. I'm sorry. That's just the fact of the matter. Usually I'm objective. Usually there's some gray area. No, there's not. It's black and white. If you're wanting Cody and Roman 2 over Rock and Roman, you don't have a brain. Sorry. Or half a brain. So,
but Cody's feelings. What if his tummy hurts?
Is Dusty.
Yeah.
His dad is Dusty.
The hell with The Rock then. I forgot his dad was Dusty. Yeah. Crap. All right. So go ahead.
And he has a very catchy theme song that he sings along to and has double set pyro to it.
Well, so, does he at least dress the part? I don't want him to look like a slob.
No, he dresses the part that he wants to be, not the part that he is.
Oh, good. I'm so glad he invented that phrase. I've never heard that before. Okay, cool. Wow, this guy seems so relatable. Go ahead.
God, I hate him so much. But anyway, so like they have to, because it will be just the and this even goes for The Rock here. Like if The Rock pulls out now, it's just like, dude, let me ask you, man, if we never see The Rock again, like he just came back for a one-off and he doesn't show up, will you have rather that he had just never come back at
Yes. Emphatically, yes. Now, everyone in attendance in Denver would say no because that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But everyone else, for the 99.9% of people at home, yeah. Oh, yeah, don't even bother. Yeah, because... yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. So here's the thing, is that I feel like they have to, and I think it would be a point of no return for The Rock. He's at a point of no return now. He reached that. He showed up. He graced us with his presence, for lack of better words. We no longer has to be referred to as Voldemort in our eyes.
Yep.
He is back, and now he has to do the match with Roman. It's just, there's no ifs, ands, and buts anymore. He has to do it. He committed to it. He unintentionally committed to it. That's what he did. So I think it has to happen, even though I have a little seed of doubt that in The Rock's mind, like he's just like, okay, so I can't give them the whole program, but I'll show up and still say that I care and this is home and it means so much to me. There's a part of me, there's a cynical side of me that thinks that might happen, but most of me is just acknowledging that no, he's going to do right by the fans. He's going to give us what we want, in the words of Batista from 2019.
Give me what? Oh my God, that was when he totally forgot what he was supposed to say in the promo, and Triple H had to like say his half. So that's the one thing too. Like I will concur that I think that The Rock and Roman I think will happen. I think it's a significant chance. I would say it's like more than 60-40. I'd say it's like 80-20 that it does happen. And the thing is though, that with that seed of doubt, we've seen it before. The Rock infamously coming back in 2011. The Rock is never ever going away, and then the next week on Raw, he's not there. It's like, bro, like at least make me believe a little bit. And so there is that part of it where he'll come back. He'll either be there to kind of promote a movie or just do a greatest hits and leave. And I think there are wrestlers that are at that point. Stone Cold is there. If he has another match, it's a bonus. No one's expecting Austin to have another match. If he does, Brock Lesnar's waiting for him. But that's not a match that's been teased or a match that's just ripe for the taking. I mean, there's a lot there, but it's not like Rock Roman with a family tie. So, The Rock, again, if he shows up, people are expecting Rock Roman. Enough with this ancillary in your own isolated bubble of something happening. Make it an effing story. Give us something and no more of this one-off stuff. And that has to be the next thing that happens. But you're right. I think that he has reached that tipping point, or as for you, astrophysicists, the event horizon, right? Like he has reached that point where there's a black hole. And there's a certain point, if you get to a certain distance from that black hole, that you cannot return. You are screwed. You're now in. And The Rock has crossed into the event horizon. And now, if you don't do it, I think fans will legitimately, I think the anger will be on The Rock, because now he is making a conscious choice again after 3 years of people speculating. And it'll be WrestleMania 37. It'll be WrestleMania 38. It'll be WrestleMania 39. It's over. It's now or never. Now you're back. Now you've talked about it openly on the podcast. It's game, set, match. It has to happen now, or I think The Rock's reputation will be damaged. I think fans will have a very bad sour taste in their mouth if it doesn't happen.
Oh, I agree. And especially given the fact that Triple H I believe it was the Rumble last year or Elimination Chamber, he mentioned that The Rock, whenever, did he say like he alluded to it being like a toy chest type of thing, and whenever The Rock is ready to come back, he'll come back and do his thing. Like WWE, like as much as they have a raging, I'm not even going to say it, as much as they love Cody Rhodes. Sorry, that's a phrase I could use on After Dark. Mm-hmm. As much as they love Cody Rhodes, I think that T.O., Vince McMahon, Triple H, Bruce Pritchard understand that it will be nothing in comparison to The Rock and Roman Reigns. So for me, if he gives them the green light, they will do Rock and Roman Reigns. There's no other match I want to see. Like if he commits to WrestleMania, like I know even some people have said, oh, will he come back and finally have the rematch with Brock? Like to me, that's passe. I don't want to see Rock versus Brock anymore. Like now Brock is like in the twilight of his career. It's just not something I want to see because who benefits from that victory? You know what I mean? Like, do you care one way or the other who really wins? 22 years later after their initial match in 2002, like I wouldn't care about that. So if he gives them the green light for WrestleMania 40, it has to be Rock and Roman. And if he doesn't show up, it is on The Rock.
Well, let's get into the final part of this. Let's talk about, since you and I both concur that it probably, but not definitely, will happen at WrestleMania 40. How would you do this? Just high level, and then what would the outcome be?
How would you do it? I mean, there's a hard, like, you would have to try to mess this up. Like, you would literally have to actively try to screw up The Rock versus Roman Reigns as a story. To be honest, last year would have made a whole lot more of difference because that could have led into the whole Civil War, the Bloodline, with The Rock showing up and the battle lines being drawn. So the fact that they didn't have the right story is nonsense to me because they literally led into the exact story that it would have kicked off with post WrestleMania this year. Like The Rock said something like they wanted something that would end and start a new story when in reality they did it's complete stupidity. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second what he said. But I do think it would have to be something. To be honest with you, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, because I'm with you and I don't want the title involved, I would have it that like LA Knight challenges Roman Reigns for the belt at the Royal Rumble, and the Bloodline is more or less back together with Jimmy in the fold and Solo still kicking around, and The Rock shows up and helps LA Knight win the championship. And that's how it starts. And then they could build to a non-title match of Rock versus Roman, even though I know that would never happen. This is what I would do. And The Rock would say, if you're the real tribal chief, you don't need the whole family to help you defend every championship. And then you can maybe tie Jay back into it, and he could be on The Rock side, and you could have like another kind of version of the Civil War, which, to be honest, I really wouldn't want to see in most cases. But if The Rock is involved, I think I would stomach one last version of kind of the Civil War part, because you're kind of going to get it regardless if The Rock is there, right? You're going to have some form of Civil War with The Rock is there. Would have been better last year because we wouldn't have been kind of tired of the Civil War thing. But I think that if The Rock is coming back, that's how I would do it.
Not bad. There's a million ways that you can do this, of which you, like you said, there's 999,999 ways to do it right, and only like one way to do this wrong. Like, there are so many ways that you can do this. I really don't think people care about how it happens as long as it happens. I know that the fugazi excuse that the Rock gave of, well, we want to do something bigger and we couldn't so we put our pencils down. If you watch the interview, you'll see. And it's like, bro, like, no, the fans, it'll be special enough that Rock and Roman is happening. We're not sitting there going, well, this better be bigger than just a match. No one's thinking. No one cares. The fans don't care. That's a very kind of creative excuse. And maybe in his mind, if that's true, I think they're overthinking it. If that's true, taking the Rock at face value, that they wanted to make that match not just a match, they wanted to start something, not just finish it at WrestleMania. Well, that's actually the definition of every single match that happens ever, because nothing ever stops. There's always a continuation. What people want, what the fans want, is a match that's good quality. We're not expecting, Rock Austin WrestleMania 17, Shawn Michaels Taker WrestleMania 25. We're expecting just a well-told story, very good, false finishes, no outside weird interference, just straight up mano-a-mano. And that's all we're asking for. And who's the better man? That's literally what we want to see, on top of the promos and, of course, the video packages that come with it. They don't need to make this any bigger or overthink it, because that's how you overbook yourself. You'll be your own worst enemy. And that's what's really concerning to me, because while I like your story about LA Knight beating Roman and The Rock, not helping LA Knight, I know what you mean by it, but to clarify, not helping LA Knight as if LA Knight needs the help to beat Roman, but evening the odds of the outside interference of Jimmy and Solo. Like that, yes, but to actually be the one to make it look like The Rock, if he wasn't there and it was one-on-one, LA Knight couldn't beat Roman. I think that's the distinction. But my point is, though, Rock and Roman, at WrestleMania, I think will be for the title because we know
100% it will be.
I don't want it to be. There's no need for it to be. It totally tips the outcome in the favor of Roman. It completely, I think, hurts the finish because you're like, well, they'll make me believe it'll be a fun match, but I mean, The Rock's not going to become champion. He's going back to Hollywood, and even if he wasn't, The Rock's not the right guy. He's going to benefit zero from this. It would be a waste of a title change, one that's the longest in the last 40 years. So there's no reason to put the title on the line, and there's no reason to give it to The Rock as a shock to the audience. So the title should be completely out of the equation, but WWE can't help themselves, and they think it'll make it bigger.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that has Vince written all over it. So that was I just would... That's just fantasy booking, which I don't like doing, but I agree. It will be for the championship. I think you've already heard whispers about it. I think Roman is probably going until 2025 with the title because they're going to
I didn't hear that.
Oh, well, I think we've talked about it. We spoke about when he passed 1,000 days. Oh. I think I've heard rumbling. Someone tagged me in it on Twitter. One of our listeners, so I don't have the energy to go back and look now, that they want him to break Hogan's 1,400-day reign or something that would get him top 4, top 3, top 4. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's like you said, man, every time there is another milestone within reach, you almost just have to be like, I guess they're going to do it, because when are they going to have another chance at it?
And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where they go, well, we've already come this far. Let's just go there. And then they go there and they're like, well, we've already got to number 4. Let's go to 3. And then they're at 3 and they're like, well, I know there's a big gap here, but when's the next time we're going to do this in our lifetimes? Let's just take it all the way. It's kind of one of those things. And I understand the temptation of that. We could be living through the longest reigning champion of all time. Although, as I mentioned on my show last night, it's infuriating now. I'm past the point of the excuse or the perceived benefit of Roman not being there, and it's more special when he's there. Oh my God. And that worked for a little while. But when you defend your belt twice in 7 months and you go from WrestleMania to SummerSlam before defending your belt again, and then SummerSlam till November, that's 4 months and now 3 months, that's inexcusable. And I don't want to hear any more about that. Well, but isn't it special when he defends it? No, that is long past its usefulness to me.
Yeah, it's I think we've been talking about this since last year during the summertime, when this new schedule of Roman Reigns really started, where you would just artificially tack on a month here, 6 weeks here, and now we've gotten into multiple months at a time. By the time he will have gone almost 3 months between defending the championship by the time we get to Crown Jewel.
Yep.
3 months. And it's
yeah.
It's, you know what? I was thinking about this today. When Brock Lesnar was on this kind of schedule, one, I think he fought more than Roman did. But the other part about this is that it fit Brock's character to bend the rules. Did it not? That was kind of what made Brock Brock. He was the first guy to be a champion in that capacity. And you know why? Because he was a real life ass kicker. He was a UFC champion. He was a guy that would logically have that much more leverage over WWE's management, that he could bend the rules. He had Paul Heyman because he had gone and conquered other combat sports. He had gone to the NFL. He was an NCAA champion. He was the heavyweight champion in Ultimate Fighting. It made sense that it fit that for Brock. And even when people were getting frustrated, it worked because Brock just went to the beat of his own drum. They're trying to do that with Roman, but it doesn't feel the same, mainly because they're trying to push him as the greatest champion of all time.
And that's what that's their whole thing. And look, Roman could end his title reign now, and he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's already a Hall of Famer, and he's deservedly so. The Bloodline story carried SmackDown for 2+ years, and the last year kind of got a little all right, let's kind of wrap it up. But everything from the Sami Zayn, program, the multiple Kevin Owens programs, even the Cody Rhodes one was pretty good. It's just to me, it's already tarnished his legacy. They'll never talk about this, of course, on air, but fans are smart enough to realize, okay, yeah, you've been champion for like 1,100 days, but how many times you defended in that time? And specifically the last like 12 to 18 months, man. How many times have you defended it in just the last 12 months? Just like, how many times? I mean, at this point, it's the most important and prestigious championship that WWE has right now, and nobody's talking about it on SmackDown. Nobody brings attention to it, and we've talked about that before. Like, no one's even mentioning, hey, other than LA Knight this past week, which I am glad he actually mentioned Roman Reigns by name. No one's talking about it, and we're told that it's the most prestigious championship. And you go 3 and 4 months between defense. I mean, stop. It's at this point, it's insulting to the fans' intelligence for us to believe that, yeah, oh my God, he's the longest reigning champion. Well, yeah, anybody could be a long reigning champion when they defend it like once every 6 months. Like, that's not hard to do. So, all right. I'm going to take a breath. Do you have any other wrap-up thoughts here before we close it?
No. Honestly, I think that we covered a lot here. Well, one of the shows I think that we've covered the most substantial news. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, something that we've been waiting for, kind of, because while The Rock returned, of course, it wasn't in the way we wanted yet. But I do think, like you mentioned, I think it's Survivor Series time after Crown Jewel. When Roman faces AJ Styles or whoever and retains, that could be another time where we're like, okay, here we go, Rock Roman, let's go. We've got 4 months to promote this. Now we're back in business. But yeah, this is probably one of the biggest returns that since you've joined the show that we've been able to cover. So, boy, things are going to get fun real quick. So, all right, well, very good. I've enjoyed the show for sure, and you guys can enjoy Anthony DeMarco's After Dark show that airs every Friday on the Patreon side of things for the SmackDown tier and higher, and very, very much a non kid friendly show. Let me just put it that way. After Dark is exactly what you think it is, a kind of R-rated commentary on wrestling and other things. So check that out every Friday. And I don't know if you have any ideas of what you're going to talk about this Friday, Anthony, but if you do, you can tease us now.
Honestly, it's the beautiful part about this show is that I have no idea where I go with it. I just gotta sit down and go wherever the wind takes me. So nothing planned yet, but be sure to check it out for sure in the SmackDown tier or higher.
That's how I feel every single time I come to this mic. I mean, sometimes it comes across like he has no idea what he's talking about. Other times I'm sure he's like, wow, he did his homework. It's like, I come here the same way every time, and it really depends on. Yeah, it's great. Sometimes off the cuff, more often than not, is better than prepared. So, all right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Anthony, thanks so much for coming on. And, of course, we'll be chatting in a week.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
All righty. Good night. So I'm going to take a minute and talk to you men out there. We know how important it is as guys to feel clean, right? But oftentimes we use products that don't really make us feel clean. You put them on or you use them in the shower and you come out and you're like, well, I kind of feel clean, but the products don't feel like they did what they were supposed to do, right? That's where rivalsoaps.com comes in. They are actually a clean you can feel. So what do they offer? They have body wash, lotion, beard balm, and all of these are made with only top quality ingredients. So this is not going to be your run-of-the-mill store brand knockoffs, right? So they may not be the cheapest, but you always get what you pay for. And right now, you can check out rivalsoaps.com and do a favor for yourself. Actually feel clean. Your body, your beard, whatever's attached to you, it will feel clean. Head on over to rivalsoaps.com. Check them out today.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.